in Mago Reddit. Today's story is...
My husband asked me, "How long will you be away?" when my father died. 7 months after his threat to burn my things, my life took a shocking turn. My father passed away this week, and I still can't fully process it. I feel like I'm walking in a fog, unable to truly accept that he is no longer here. My father had been dealing with various health issues for quite some time. Although he was receiving treatment and we knew his condition was delicate, we never imagined that it would end so abruptly. My parents had built a life together and had been a family for many years, and now my mother is dealing with the void left by his passing. The day we received the news of my father's death, my brother David and I dropped everything and headed home. As David lives closer, just a few hours away with his family, he was able to arrive first. I lived much further away, so I had to book a flight and make the necessary arrangements before I could get there. I told my husband what had happened, hoping he would show understanding. However, his first words were, "How long will you be away?" He did not ask how I felt or offer any comfort. There was no "Are you okay?" or "Do you need me to go with you to help with a funeral or support your mother?" His reaction left me perplexed. His response sounded insensitive, and at that moment it was as if he did not perceive my pain or the seriousness of the situation. The morning before leaving, I woke up very early, long before dawn. I wanted to make sure I had left everything ready for my husband. He is extremely demanding with his meals, almost obsessively so. If I don't cook for him, he refuses to prepare his own food and resorts to ordering in, which, in addition to being unhealthy, unnecessarily depletes our financial resources. So, despite being overwhelmed by pain and tension, I spent the morning preparing his meals. I cooked and carefully packed food for the whole week, labeling each container and meticulously organizing them in the refrigerator. Only when I finished this task did I start to get ready to leave. Before leaving, I tried to wake up my husband to ask if he could at least take me to the airport. I thought it would be comforting to have some support, even if it was something as simple as him driving me, but he didn't want to cooperate. He was annoyed that I had woken him up so early and flatly refused my request. I felt hurt, but I didn't have the energy to argue. Instead of insisting, I booked a transport service and left the house silently, trying not to let his indifference get to me too much. The journey to my mother's house seemed eternal. My nerves were completely on edge, and all I could think about was my mother and how she must be feeling. When I finally arrived and saw her, I broke down emotionally. I couldn't hold back the tears as I fell into her arms. Seeing her was heartbreaking. She seemed like a shadow of the strong, lively woman I had always known. Suffering was etched on her face, and it was clear that she was barely managing to hold it all together. Aware of everything she is going through, my brother David and I have taken on all the responsibilities. We organized the funeral, dividing the costs equally between us. We have also been going through Dad's legal and insurance documents, making sure everything is in order. Fortunately, my father was always organized and had made provisions for the future. He had designated my mother as the rightful heir to his house, so at least we don't have to worry about her losing her home on top of everything else. It's been a lot to manage, but knowing that we are easing some of the burden for my mother gives us purpose in the midst of all this sadness. As you can imagine, this last week has been overwhelming in every respect. Physically, emotionally, and mentally, the days have been full of responsibilities, preparations, and the roller coaster of emotions that accompany the loss of someone so close. In the midst of everything that is happening, my brother, my mother, and I have been spending a lot of time together, remembering my father. We have shared anecdotes, laughter mixed with tears, and recalled the little details that made him so special. It's bittersweet, but these moments have been a source of comfort for all of us. They help us feel as if he is still somehow present, living on through our memories. With all this going on, I haven't had much energy or mental space to maintain communication with my husband. My attention has been completely focused on my family and processing the loss. What hurts me, however, is that he has made no effort to communicate either. Not once has he called to ask how I am or to find out how things are going. It's as if he doesn't care or, even worse, as if he doesn't consider it his responsibility to worry. This is not the first time he has acted like this when it comes to my family. Even before, he has always shown indifference. He has never shown much interest in the lives of my relatives or made any effort to connect with them, but this time it feels different. He feels much worse. My father has passed away, and the least my husband could do in these particularly painful circumstances is show some compassion. Even a simple, "How is your mother?" or "Are you feeling all right?" would have meant a lot to me, but he didn't even bother. It's hard not to feel hurt by this. And to make matters worse, my mother-in-law has been calling me incessantly this week. She wasn't calling to see how I was or to offer her condolences, but to demand explanations. She wanted to know why I had returned home for a whole week, why I hadn't come back sooner. According to her, I was neglecting my duties as a wife. I couldn't believe how my return home to deal with my father's death was somehow interpreted as me abandoning my husband. He was an adult who could manage at least a week without me. I explained to my mother-in-law calmly but firmly that it's not as if I can visit my family frequently. Both she and my husband have made it difficult for me to return home over the years, but this time was different. This was not a casual visit. It was for the death of my father. We are processing our grief, and I need to be with my mother and my brother during this devastating time. I was not on vacation. I was dealing with a loss. But even after I explained, she continued to press the issue. She clearly wanted to argue, but I was too exhausted to continue the exchange. I told her as politely as possible that I would stay with my family for as long as necessary, whether she and my husband approved or not. I made it clear that I was done with the conversation, and before she could say anything else, I ended the call. At the time, I thought that would be the end of it and that I would finally back down. However, this morning I woke up to a 5-page email from my mother-in-law. 5 pages. I couldn't believe my eyes as I read it, my anger steadily increasing with every sentence. In her email, she had the audacity to write about how her precious son, my husband, had been suffering in my absence, and that I was basically mistreating his poor son. She mentioned that the meals I had prepared before leaving were not adequate or nutritious, and that I needed to return home immediately and serve him only hot and freshly prepared meals. She even mentioned how my husband had been calling on her to clean the house, as he never bothered to clean up after himself. She complained of being tired of picking up after him, as if this was somehow my responsibility. Then, to top it all off, she had the audacity to tell me directly that these tasks, cooking, cleaning, and running the household, were my obligations as his wife. She went on to say that I needed to get over my grief and return to him, as if the death of my father were some trivial inconvenience that I could quickly get over. And if that wasn't enough to make my blood boil, she ended the email with a thinly veiled threat. She suggested that if I didn't return soon, she would persuade my husband to consider leaving me because, in her words, he could find someone much better than me. This was like an unexpected slap that left me deeply stunned. There was not a single kind or empathetic word in that entire email. No acknowledgement of the fact that I had just lost my father. No concern for how I might be feeling. Just demands and blame, as if my pain and time with my family were inconvenient for her and her son. Normally, I would have felt pressure to return home quickly after receiving such a disturbing email from her. In the past, her harsh words and manipulative tactics would have worked. But today, something inside me broke. I couldn't tolerate it anymore. The sense of entitlement, the lack of empathy, the constant disregard for my feelings and needs, the fact that she had the audacity to send such an email when I was in the midst of grieving for my father was the last straw. I was furious, not just with her, but with the whole situation. How dare she turn this into an issue about her son's supposed suffering when my whole world had been turned upside down? For once, I wasn't going to let her blame or shame me for standing by my family in their time of need. Her words no longer affected me as they used to. Instead, they stoked a fire in me. I realized I deserved better than this. Better than being treated like a servant. Better than being blamed for mourning my father. Better than being made to feel like my needs don't matter. And just to add context, I married my husband when I was very young. He is 6 years older than me, and in retrospect, I think that age difference has always influenced how the dynamics of our relationship have developed. From the beginning, he has been controlling, not in an openly aggressive way, but more subtly and in disguise as concern for my safety or what is best for me. For example, he does not allow me to get a job. Every time I have mentioned it, he has rejected the idea, saying that it is unnecessary because he can support me financially. He insists that I share my phone's location with him constantly, so that he knows exactly where I am, and I am not allowed to have male friends at all. Even with my female friends, I am not allowed to stay over at their houses, no matter the circumstances. She controls much of what I do, but she always presents it as if she were protecting me or trying to keep me safe. I admit that over the years I have followed her rules rather than standing my ground. I don't like conflict. I have always been a rather shy person, so I found it easier to just comply than to argue. I never had a wide circle of friends anyway, so it wasn't as if I was giving up much socially, at least that's what I told myself. But reflecting now, I realize that my quiet nature and my tendency to avoid conflict allowed him to completely dominate me, dictating almost every aspect of my life. It's not just him, though. My mother-in-law is incredibly toxic too, and has been a constant source of tension in my life. One of the biggest problems with her has been her relentless insistence that we have children. She constantly brings it up, putting all the pressure on me. What she refuses to acknowledge is that the reason we have not been able to conceive is not even my responsibility, it is due to a fertility problem with my husband. But instead of accepting this reality, he blames me entirely. He has gone so far as to tell me that if I were a real woman, I would have gotten pregnant by now anyway. For years I have tried not to let his cruel words affect me. I ignored them or repressed my feelings, telling myself that it wasn't worth the energy to confront him. But today, reading her email, so full of demands, blame and complete indifference to what I am going through, was like a revelation. I don't want to keep living like this. I don't want to keep walking on eggshells, allowing them to control my life and determine my worth. I have been too compliant for too long, and I cannot continue to live in this cycle of disrespect and manipulation. I know I'm very emotional right now, and part of me is afraid of making a rash decision, so I wanted to come here and share my story. Am I the bad guy if I decide to leave my husband, or am I exaggerating the situation? Update 1. Wow, I never expected this post to get so much attention. My phone has been flooded with notifications since I shared my story. I have read numerous comments from people pointing out how toxic my marriage is and encouraging me to leave as soon as possible. Many of you have said things like, "You should have left yesterday," and honestly it has been overwhelming, but also enlightening. I think I always knew deep down that my marriage wasn't healthy, but hearing so many people validate those feelings and point out the warning signs has really made me reflect on how much I've been tolerating for the sake of avoiding conflict or trying to maintain harmony. For those who are wondering what exactly made me realize all this, I want to clarify that it wasn't just the horrible email from my mother-in-law. The email was definitely a turning point, but what really cemented everything for me was something much more personal, a letter from my father. Let me explain. My father always kept a diary. He had been writing in it for years, and it was one of his most valued habits. After starting his treatment for his health problems, he made it clear to us that he wanted my brother and I to read his diary one day. I think he saw it as a way for us to feel connected to him, even when he was no longer around. As my brother and I have been organizing his belongings and putting everything in order, we decided to start reading his diaries together. It was then that we found an entry from a few years ago that I felt was addressed directly to me. The moment I started reading, I felt a lump in my throat. It was as if my father was talking to me through those pages, and what he wrote moved me deeply. In this diary entry, my father had written about how much he missed me. He talked about how he wished I would visit home more often. He recalled the moments we used to share when I was growing up, how we would play cards in the afternoons, and how much he cherished those moments with me. He wrote about how much he missed surprising me with little gifts and seeing my face light up with joy. He even mentioned how much he missed the sound of my name spoken by his own voice, and how he longed for the times when he could call me and I would come to him full of energy and enthusiasm. Reading his words was like an emotional blow. I could feel his love for me in every sentence, but I could also sense the underlying sadness. I hadn't realized how much he missed me, how much he longed for those small, simple moments that meant everything to him. And the truth is that I hadn't been around as much as I should have been. Part of that was because my husband and mother-in-law made it so difficult for me to visit, always finding ways to discourage me or make me feel guilty about coming home. At the end of that diary entry, my father wrote something that has stayed with me since I read it. "You seem to have lost the sparkle in your eyes. I hope you get it back soon." Those words struck me more strongly than anything else. My father had always been someone who noticed the little details about me, whether I was happy, upset, or even just tired. Those words seemed to mean more. To tell me directly that my relationship was toxic and was harming me. Looking at how my husband and mother-in-law have treated me, not only over the years, but especially this last week, I can no longer deny it. My father was right. I have lost the sparkle in my eyes. Their behavior has been a clear reminder of how toxic my marriage is. They have repeatedly shown me that no matter how much I do for them, no matter how much I sacrifice or dedicate myself, it is never enough. And the truth is that I have already wasted too many years of my life trying to please them, striving for people who refuse to meet me halfway. I spent too much time allowing their opinions and demands to dictate my life, and I don't want to continue living this way. For all those who ask about children, yes, I want to have children more than anything. I have always dreamed of becoming a mother, but as much as I long for it, I am now grateful that my husband cannot have children. The idea of raising a child with someone like him, someone so controlling, contemptuous, and selfish terrifies me. Even if I resorted to adoption or surrogacy, I wouldn't want our child to grow up with a father like him or to be influenced by his behavior. It's not fair to them and it's not fair to me. I owe it to my future children, if and when I have them, to find a better role model for them. I want them to grow up in a home full of love, respect, and kindness. I want them to see what a healthy and supportive relationship is like, and now I know that I can't offer them that if I stay in this marriage. I need to get away from this man. I need to rediscover myself, to regain the sparkle in my eyes that my father saw fading away. Update 2. Today I sat down and talked to my brother and my mother about my plan to leave my marriage. Part of me thought they might be surprised, maybe even try to persuade me to give my husband another chance, especially since he had been so adamant about my love for him when we initially got married. But when I finally expressed my decision to end my marriage, they simply looked at each other for a moment, almost as if they had been expecting it. Then my mother turned to me and said, "I'm glad you're leaving that loud. He was never good enough for you, but because you were so in love with him, we had to keep quiet and just accept it." It was as if she had been holding back her opinions for years, silently watching me put up with a relationship that she probably knew wasn't right for me. My brother, who was usually more reserved, also stepped in with a hug and assured me that he and my mother would have my back no matter what. He told me that I didn't have to face this alone, that they were here for me every step of the way. My mother even went as far as offering me accommodation at her house, saying that I could move in with her whenever I was ready. With her encouragement, I finally decided to confront my husband and mother-in-law about my decision. I wasn't going to be indirect or soften anything, so I arranged a video call with them both. When they joined the call, I didn't waste any time. I took a deep breath and announced directly, I want a divorce. The look on their faces was unforgettable, and for a moment they both just stared at me in complete astonishment. My husband was the first to speak, and all he could manage to ask was, "Are you playing a joke on me?" He seemed to genuinely think that this was some kind of elaborate farce. I looked him straight in the eye through the screen and said, "No, I'm not joking. I'm completely serious. I want to separate." That's when chaos broke out. Both he and my mother-in-law launched into a loud diatribe, speaking simultaneously while trying to argue with me. They accused me of having lost my mind and claimed I was being irrational for wanting a divorce for no apparent reason. I explained to them both how I had been feeling for a long time, the damage that this marriage had caused me, how these last few days had confirmed my decision to leave. I told them that separating was not a decision I took lightly, but it was the right one for me. I even tried to keep my tone firm and even-tempered, despite the intense emotions bubbling under the surface. But instead of listening to me, my husband immediately dismissed everything I said. His first response was to accuse me of being on my period, as if my feelings and decisions were nothing more than hormonal mood swings. Then he directly called me unbalanced for even suggesting a divorce. It was outrageous to see how little respect he had for me, how quickly he resorted to belittling my emotions. Then he had the audacity to demand that I pack my bags and return home with him, saying that we could talk once I was back. And as if that wasn't bad enough, my mother-in-law weighed in with her own nonsense, asking me if I was acting this way because of the email I had sent earlier. She justified the email as a harmless note of concern, rather than the insulting and overbearing tirade that it actually was. She had the audacity to say that she was only concerned for her son, insinuating that my actions were an overreaction to her well-meaning words in the email. She then shifted the blame onto me, claiming that I was unnecessarily escalating the situation. She even had the nerve to tell me that I lacked conflict management skills and that I was not thinking clearly due to the death of my father. At that moment, I felt furious. Their psychological manipulation was outrageous. None of them took a moment to acknowledge my pain or take any responsibility for their actions. Instead, they were determined to distort the narrative and make me feel like I was the unreasonable one. It was as if they couldn't comprehend that their behavior had led me to this decision. I realized then and there that it was really over. I didn't need this kind of toxic manipulation in my life anymore. I made it clear to them that I was leaving and that I would start the divorce process whether they liked it or not. I told them that no amount of arguing, psychological manipulation, or guilt-tripping would change my determination. This decision was not up for debate. It was then that my husband's tone changed from dismissive to openly threatening. He told me that if I didn't change my mind, he would destroy all my clothes and jewelry. He even threatened to damage my work computer and other valuable equipment in a fit of rage. His threats were a desperate attempt to regain control, but instead they only reinforced my decision even more. I was not intimidated. I responded firmly and told him that if he dared to destroy or damage anything of mine, I would sue him and bring him to justice. I warned him that he would not only have to face lawyers, but that I would make sure he paid for every object he ruined. I was no longer willing to give in, and he knew it. By now, both my husband and my mother-in-law were furious. They were visibly upset, clearly frustrated that they could not manipulate or intimidate me into submission. But there was nothing they could do now. Their threats, insults, and guilt-tripping tactics no longer had any power over me. I had made my decision and was finally getting my life back. By the way, for anyone concerned for my safety, please don't be alarmed. My brother is a policeman. He has agreed to fly back with me to help me pack and retrieve all my belongings from my husband's place. With him present, my husband really can't hurt me. Update 3. It is hard to believe, but it has been 7 months since I last shared an update. So much has happened since then, and I am finally at a point where I can reflect on it all with a sense of peace and accomplishment. To answer the question that many people have been asking me, yes, I have finally obtained my divorce from my ex-husband, and let me tell you, it was not an easy road. It has been a long and drawn-out process that tested my patience and fortitude at every stage. My ex and his mother did everything they could to delay and complicate the divorce proceedings. They extended the process as much as they could, placing unnecessary obstacles in my path, in what I can only assume was a desperate attempt to make me give up or come back begging. But thanks to my extraordinary lawyer, who fought tirelessly on my behalf, I was able to persevere until the end. My lawyer handled their petty tactics with professionalism and persistence, and for that, I am deeply grateful. Now, I can finally say that I am free from the toxicity, control, and unhappiness that characterized my marriage. It feels amazing to finally close that chapter of my life and move on. Throughout this whole process, my brother and my mother have been my mainstay. They have been by my side every step of the way, offering me unconditional support, love, and encouragement. I don't know how I would have coped without them. I am currently living with my mother, which has been such a comforting and healing experience. Being back in the home where I grew up, surrounded by my mother's affection and care, has helped me rediscover a sense of security and belonging that I hadn't experienced in years. Since finalizing the divorce, life has felt like a breath of fresh air. For the first time in what seems like an eternity, I am living for myself. I don't have to cook for anyone, clean up after anyone, or constantly be checking on someone else's needs. I don't have to send location updates to anyone or tiptoe around trying to keep the peace. It's such a liberating feeling, one I never knew I needed so badly until I experienced it. Clearly, I've come to understand why so many independent women tend to live longer, more fulfilling lives. I wake up every morning without the weight of someone else's demands or expectations on my shoulders. There is no tension, no stress, no endless list of tasks to be done to please someone else. I can make decisions based entirely on what brings me happiness. And at night, I sleep better than I have in years, deeply without worries to disturb me. Looking to the future, I am excited about the next chapter of my life. I plan to start applying for jobs in the area soon, and the idea of building a new career fills me with hope and determination. There is so much I want to achieve, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I am in control of my own destiny. Life feels really good right now. I am genuinely excited to see what happens next. After so long feeling trapped in a relationship that consumed me, I can now breathe freely and explore all the possibilities that life has to offer. Every day is a new beginning, and I am learning to rediscover who I really am without the constant shadow of my ex-husband and his mother controlling every aspect of my existence. The road has not been easy, and I know I still have a lot to heal and process, but I am grateful for this opportunity to rebuild my life on my own terms. The sparkle in my eyes that my father mentioned is slowly returning, and I feel that I am finally honoring his memory by choosing happiness and self-respect. Thank you all for your support and for helping me see what I should have recognized a long time ago. Sometimes we need others to show us what we cannot see for ourselves, and I am eternally grateful for the clarity you have given me.